Hi, it's Helena Wadia here, and welcome back to the Standard Podcast. Coming up, a look ahead to the star-studded Oscars taking place in LA this Sunday. Who will win big and who might break records?
Timothée Chalamet is also gunning for Best Actor for his performance as Bob Dylan. And so if he wins, he will actually steal Brody's record as the youngest ever winner. I think Chalamet would be 10 months younger than Brody was when he won.
We'll be joined by Vicky, Jessop, commissioning editor and culture writer at the London Standard. But first, was T.S. Eliot telling the truth when he said April is the cruellest month? Perhaps he had foreseen February 2025, as news broke today that millions of people are facing a perfect storm of rising bills, with energy, water, council tax, train fares, mobile and broadband bills set to increase on or around April 1st. Today saw the latest price cap announcement from energy regulator Ofgem, who said energy bills for millions of households are to rise by a bigger than expected 6.4%. Here's the London Standard's business editor Jonathan Prynn to explain just how many pounds may be added to the average household bill and what reaction we've seen from government today. Hi Jonathan, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
So tell us, why has the regulator Ofgem said gas and electricity prices are rising?
Well, essentially, the regulator sets a cap on bills every quarter, and those caps allow energy suppliers to increase their bills up to that sort of ceiling that the regulator sets. And that ceiling is kind of determined by the price at which the energy companies are able to buy gas and electricity on the wholesale markets. And also give them enough room to make a small profit. And the Ofgem sort of calculates that figure every quarter. And unfortunately, for this coming quarter, April to June, that is going to mean a slight increase in bills, 6.4%, which obviously is not going to be welcome to most households.
Now, you said 6.4% there, but how much will the rise add to the average household bill in pounds?
So what Ofgem are saying is that a typical household bill will go up by £111 over the course of a year, about £9.25 a month, increasing it to a total of £1,849. Yeah, there's no real sign of any relief for households in sight, unfortunately.
Was this rise expected?
It was expected. There's lots of analysts out there who sort of do a constant calculation of what they expect the cap to go up by, and the sort of most respected of them, a firm called Cornwall Insight, said only last week that they thought on their calculations that the cap would go up by about 5%. It's actually come in slightly higher than that, 6.4%. So I think the scale of the increase was a surprise that it was higher than forecast.
How does this new rise compare with when we were at the height of the energy crisis, let's say at the start of 2023?
That's a really good question. I mean, what happened then was that obviously prices in the wholesale market, the global sort of energy commodity markets, absolutely soared after the Russians went over the border into Ukraine at the start, or almost exactly 3 years ago to the day. Now that had an absolutely horrific knock-on effect onto the bills that people were going to have to pay. Now, fortunately, the government stepped in at that point and put an energy guarantee in place at £2,500. So if it hadn't been for that, people would have been looking at annual bills of £4,000 or more, which obviously would have been completely out of the reach of millions of households. So the government, Liz Truss was Prime Minister at the time, and she put in the autumn of 2022 this energy guarantee, which £2,500 is bad enough, and it's certainly £700 more than this cap announced today. But at least most people, they might not like it, but they can probably afford it. So we're still well below those levels, but we're well up on the levels of a year ago.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine, is this the biggest factor at play in the rise of energy bills?
It's really interesting that, I mean, what Ofgem are saying is that 3/4 of the increase is they can put down to higher wholesale energy prices that they link to the Russian invasion of Ukraine and uncertainty in global markets and so on. But the independent analysts are sort of putting a slightly different spin on it. They're saying, well, yeah, there's a bit of that. But also, you've got to bear in mind that we've had quite a cold winter by recent standards. It's been really chilly, not just in the UK, but really across Europe. In fact, Europe's had it far worse than us, the coldest winter for several years. So that obviously increases demand across Europe, and that puts the price up. Also, the type of winter we've had has not been helpful. We've had a lot of cold, still, overcast days, and that is a disaster for renewables because the wind turbines don't turn, solar panels are not getting any sunlight. So renewables generation has been very weak this winter, and that's also pushed the price of gas up because people can't get their power from renewable sources. The Germans have a word for it, of course they do. It's called Dunkelflaute, which describes those days of overcast, leaden skies and almost no wind. That, if you cast your mind back over this last winter we've had a lot of that, and it's very depressing. But it's also very bad for renewable energy generation.
The public will undoubtedly be worried about this rise. Are there any schemes or discounts that households can look to for help with their energy bills?
Yeah, there are schemes. In fact, the government announced an extension to its headline scheme today as well. Warm Homes discount, which is aimed at more vulnerable households, they can get up to £150 off their energy bills. There are options. Of course, people can switch energy supplier. Unfortunately, the cap has slightly taken some of the benefits away from competition, because what happens is that the major suppliers all just raise their tariffs to the level of the cap, and that's rather taken away the competitive element of the market, which was, before the energy crisis, was quite useful. People could swap and find a cheaper supplier, and there were far more suppliers out there, so there was a much more competitive market. Most of those smaller suppliers, unfortunately, went bust during the energy crisis. So there are things you can do, but most people will probably just take it on the chin and say, well, that's not great, but we're going to have to pay it.
And finally, have we heard from the Energy Secretary, Ed Miliband? Has he reacted to this rise?
Yes, he has. He's been doing the rounds, as you'd expect. His spin on it is that, we can't go on being at the mercy of what he calls, sort of dictatorial governments like Russia, who are kind of setting the price that we all have to pay over here through their actions. So he's saying the only way we can have energy security and bring down bills in the long term is, in his words, make Britain a clean energy superpower with lots of homegrown clean power that we can control in the UK and is not at the mercy of people like Vladimir Putin. And that's all very well, but, it's going to take time to deliver. We haven't even had the legislation yet through Parliament that would create the Great British Green Energy Company, I think it's called. So that's many years down the track. And as we've seen over this winter, it's not a slam dunk. Renewables are at the mercy of weather conditions and so on. And when the sun don't shine and the wind don't blow, you don't get the power that you need. So there's always going to be an element of fossil fuels and nuclear energy and so on. Obviously, this is disappointing news for the government. April is a terrible month for households. Water bills are going up, various other bills are going up. So not the news they'd be wanting to deliver this morning.
Let's go to the ads. In part 2, we'll be joined by Vicky Jessop, commissioning editor and culture writer at the London Standard, for a look ahead to this year's Academy Awards. Which films are leading the nominations? Is there a clear frontrunner? And what controversies have created a storm? We'll see you back here in just a moment. Welcome back. Now, the Academy Awards are fast approaching, with the coveted Best Picture award appearing to be one of the most open contests in years. Nominations were announced last month for the 97th Oscars, taking place at the Dolby Theatre in Los Angeles on Sunday evening. Well, to talk us through the frontrunners, the controversies, and why UK fans will have to be dedicated to a very late night to watch, here's the London Standard's commissioning editor and culture writer, Vicky Jessop. Hi, Vicky.
Hello.
So tell us, which films are leading the nominations?
Currently, Emilia Perez is leading the way with 13 nods. That's Best Picture, Best Supporting Actress, Best Director among them. For reasons we'll go to maybe a bit later, it's probably very unlikely that they will win most of those awards now, with the exception of perhaps Zoe Saldana for Best Supporting Actress. Following on from that, we've got The Brutalist, which is the A24 film about a Holocaust survivor who goes to America, played by Adrian Brody, which is exceedingly grim and sad. That is following behind with 10 nominations, as is Wicked. And then there's the Timothée Chalamet, Bob Dylan juggernaut biopic, A Complete Unknown, and then Conclave, which is Ralph Fiennes' papal drama about, a group of cardinals who get together to elect the next pope. Those both have 8 nominations. And yeah, I guess also a shout out for The Substance, which is Demi Moore's kind of body horror film, I would say. That's up for Best Picture and Best Actress for Demi Moore, who might very well win.
Out of these key nominations for Best Picture, does there seem to be an obvious frontrunner?
Yeah, there are a couple, I guess. One film I haven't really mentioned yet, just because it hasn't got as many nominations as the others, is Anora. That's Mikey Madison and Sean Baker's film about a sex worker who marries a Russian oligarch's son. That's been getting steadily more buzz, I think, as the kind of award season has rolled on. Mikey Madison won the BAFTA for Best Actress last week, so the odds of her, of them clinching Best Picture are quite good. Again, The Brutalist, I read it described somewhere as kind of the film critics' favourite film or something like that, just because it's very kind of highbrow, very depressing, very beautiful to look at. And then a bit further out, again, there's Conclave, which was, I suppose, especially prescient. Now the current Pope is in hospital. It also won Best Picture at the BAFTAs last week. And the BAFTAs are generally quite a good weather vane for kind of determining what will do well at the Oscars. And again, there's Emilia Perez. That was a frontrunner, an awards favourite until recently. This French-directed film about a Mexican drug lord who comes out as trans, played by Carla Sofia Gascon. That was then torpedoed by a combination of general backlash. For instance, the film was actually shot in France. Mexicans really took offense at the kind of stereotypes used. That didn't go down super well. And then its star's old tweets resurfaced, which were extremely controversial and have essentially tanked the film's chances of doing well, I think.
Are there any records that possibly could be broken this year?
Yeah, a couple. So this is the first time that 2 musicals have been nominated for Best Picture in more than 5 decades. So that's Wicked and Emilia Perez. Also, this could be Adrian Brody's chance to make it big in the Oscars sense, I suppose. He's currently the youngest ever winner of Best Actor. So he was 29 when he won for his performance in The Pianist. That was in 2002. But he wasn't nominated again until this year for The Brutalist. And if he wins, he will become the first person to win the leading actor category with his first 2 nominations. But then also Timothée Chalamet is also gunning for Best Actor for his performance as Bob Dylan. And so if he wins, he will actually steal Brody's record as the youngest ever winner. I think Chalamet would be 10 months younger than Brody was when he won. So that's one to keep an eye on.
Okay, well, now let's look a little closer to home. And who are some of the UK talents nominated this year?
Yeah, to be honest, there's not a lot. I guess the main one is Ralph Fiennes for Conclave. So the last 2 times he was nominated for Best Actor for Schindler's List and The English Patient, his film won Best Picture. So if Conclave wins Best Picture, he would set a record for having appeared in the most Best Picture winners, which is, nice for him. But yes, he's up for Best Actor, as is Cynthia Erivo for Wicked, and Felicity Jones for Best Supporting Actress in The Brutalist. Apart from that, the field's a little bit thin. I guess maybe Wallace and Gromit, if they count as UK talent, for Best Animated Feature Film. And then there's a couple for Best Visual Effects, for Better Man, the Robbie Williams, I guess, mock biopic, in which Robbie Williams is played by a monkey, a CGI monkey, and then Best Original Song for Never Too Late for Elton John. So, yeah.
Okay, well, it's shaping up to be a star-studded event. But of course, the Oscars are now playing out against the backdrop of wildfires, which devastated Los Angeles last month. Do you think this will change the tone of the award ceremony at all?
I think it will be foolish of the organisers if it didn't, because there is, rarely a greater disconnect between this ultra rarefied world of celebrity. People know it's not the real world, and it would seem myopic to not acknowledge the disaster playing out on the doorstep as these celebrities and their, designer outfits swan down the red carpet. The Academy has kind of nodded to it. You know, there was a bit of speculation for a while about whether the ceremony would even go ahead. It is going ahead, and the CEO and the president sent out a letter in January to kind of acknowledge that they will be focusing on highlighting the strength and creativity and optimism of Los Angeles, you know, in the aftermath of the wildfires. There wouldn't be live performances during the broadcast, and instead people would honour the songwriters. So I guess kind of a little bit more. There will be nods to it, but I imagine it'll be more lip service than anything else.
Okay, well, finally tell us where and what time can UK fans watch the Oscars?
So they're taking place on March the 2nd, so obviously this Sunday. Some good news, it is actually free to watch. Previously it's been streamed on Sky, now it's on ITV1. However, you will have to get up at the lovely sociable hour of 2 a.m. to watch. So, you know, pros and cons.
And that's The Standard. For all the latest news and to read more about the stories featured in this episode, head to standard.co.uk. If you'd like to get in touch with us, we'd love to hear from you. Drop us a line at podcasts@standard.co.uk.